intersect with the other street. So therefore, there's no justification for BOE to give for the easement. If this street is short, we may consider. And even though usually if we consider at limited, if some situation we can consider limited local street, and usually that is at the end of the street only a few houses. But this one is really too long, and then there's no. Yeah, and also this first one and then set a precedent for the future development. So there's no justification for giving an easement. So maybe planning can consider to give them some variance for the border sanity or something.
Okay. So that makes sense then, and I'm likely to agree with BOE regarding the required dedication. So for the applicant, that leaves the option of a specific plan exception because the lot area requirements are governed by the specific plan. So that isn't something we can take action on today. What we can do then, well, before we go on.
I'd like to add information though, because a lot of the information she's saying is not correct. So I'm not sure how thoroughly this was researched. First of all, you can't do a condo in an R2. That's zoning code. So you guys should know this, right? You can't do a condo in an R2. R2 lot's not subdividable.
So
that's not wrong. It's correct. No, you can do you can do a condo in an R1.5. You can do a condo in an R3. I'll get a letter if I have to.
You can do 2 units on an R2 as a condo, sir.
You can't do.
Yes.
Subdivide the lot.
Yes.
So we're talking.
Yes, you can do condo. You can do 2 units condo on R2 zone, sir.
No, you can't.
Yes.
No,
okay, so we're not going to argue about that. That's something that we've already provided clarification on. So let's get back to this issue.
No, because the information she's saying is based on incorrect information. First of all, you can't subdivide an R2 lot, and therefore the remainder of the street will never have dedications on it. The R3 portion that she's looking at is very short. She's saying there's no existing development. This is the first development of this kind. It's not correct either. There's already a 6-unit, fully maxed out apartment building to my left, and there's 2 sets of duplexes that are 3 stories high to my right. Those are never going to get torn down. There's never going to be more like further, bigger development that's going to require dedication on those lots. They're maxed out already.
So we have considered several condo applications in the R2 zone, and you did mention there is something in the code, so if you'd like to give us that code section, we can take a look together. But at this point in time, BOE has provided their comments. We're still in the Q&A section here, and it looks like we have someone from the public here who probably would like to provide comments too.
I was kind of relying on you guys because I turned in a waiver of dedication application, and then you guys told me not to do that. You had me pull that.
Right. So a waiver.
I'm sort of relying on you guys to
the waiver of dedications request under the provisions of 12.37 aren't appropriate when you have a parcel map filed. So the waiver of any dedications or modifications of conditions would be under the authority of the advisory agency. So if you were filing a separate discretionary action that has nothing to do with the subdivision map act and these provisions, then you would request a waiver of dedications under 1237. So it really depends on what your project is and the requested actions. So with that, before we get into further deliberations with the committee, I'm going to ask if anyone in the public would like to provide comments, and I see one hand raised, so maybe we can switch seats here. Before we have public comment, I do want to advise that the purpose of public comments is to provide testimony on the project and not specific individuals or the applicant. So I'd like you to focus your comments on just that, just the project and the requested actions. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I appreciate that anecdote. My name is Margaret Malloy, 3841 Beethoven Street, 90066. Bindu is the person I sent a lot of documents to. I CC'd you, Juliet. I don't know about the other people here, but I would ask you to share those documents with them. Mr. Thibodeau works a lot in Venice and has for many years, serves on the VNC since 2016 in an elected capacity, and has a mandate through that to represent all constituents. And to
Again, I'd like to clarify, please
Okay, but
focus on the project.
when somebody cheats on Mello, and this is one of those situations, it's relevant that they're an
No,
elected official.
it isn't relevant unless
Okay,
we're
then I'll
talking
stick
about
to
the
other
project.
issues. Mr. Thibodeau bought this duplex, and there was a notice to comply at some point in 2014 for a conversion of garage to an unpermitted third unit. So there was a notice to comply, there was an action by DBS to say now it's been cleared, and then there was an application by Mr. Thibodeau to convert the garage to storage. And it's, for some reason, the VSO that was issued in 2014 is not on ZEMAS, and it is only in the comment section of the permit that was issued for that particular activity. So the VSO is DIR 2014-3129 VSO. I would ask you all to look at that, please. And the permit that was issued, there were 2 permits issued, is LADVS 4016-30000-16063. So the first one is to allow the conversion, the second one is a certificate of occupancy for that conversion. It is somehow allowing 2 existing units with a 2-car garage, which is a grandfathered right in that situation, to have the garage converted to storage, theoretically storage, and outdoor parking. So that's an unusual variance. And after the fact, Mr. Thibodeau converted it once again to an unpermitted unit. And when he submitted this application, there was a notice to comply on that permit, on that property. So I know from experience that this is not the first application that Mr. Thibodeau has submitted that had an open, active notice to comply that he did not disclose. And in both cases, it affected the Mello consideration for the property. So there's an ongoing issue, or unpermitted units considered for for Mello. And our argument is, of course they should be. He's been collecting rent for years. Substantial rent. The rent stabilization ordinance requires that that unit be considered in how a tenant is treated under the circumstance. But Mr. Thibodeau has signed affidavits with the housing department saying 2 units only, filed rent registry with the housing department 2017 and 2018, 2 units only, and yet had an active notice to comply for a 3rd unit. I ask you to consider that. It is relevant that somebody's an elected official and their job is to look after the welfare of our community when we're in a housing crisis. 3 units have a different reckoning under Mello than 2 units, so it's not familiar to everybody, but Ms. O and Ms. Canoe know about the Mello Act and the coastal zone. It's very relevant. And it's very relevant that an elected official who is a developer and makes all of the judgments for all planning decisions that come through Venice is doing this on his personal property. He owns this property. He's not representing any other person. So I'd ask you to consider that. I'm asking you to keep the record open for at least 3 weeks. I've done an extensive CPRA with housing, but I just discovered this VSO last night. So there's documents we want to collect and submit, and we want you to please consider all of them before approving this. As I had stated at a previous hearing here for 305 Oceanfront Walk, Mr. Thibodeau has a pattern and practice of after-the-fact applications for conversions or variances or after-the-fact approvals. I'm asking you, please keep the record open, let us collect our data, let us submit it on this particular property only. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So it sounded like most of the public comments were focused on the Mello Act compliance review request, and this is a joint public hearing for both cases. So staff will include those comments for the Mello determination, for the director's determination. I do want to clarify, though, that for the purposes of Mello, when housing conducts their review of existing units, it's based on the legally permitted dwelling units. So no, I'm not taking questions at this point. So housing's review, again, and it looks like in the letter they found no affordable units for the existing 2 legal units. The city is currently in the process of preparing a Mellow Act ordinance, and perhaps those, the current procedures will change under any new ordinance, but at this point in time, we're subject to the interim administrative procedures. So with that, I'm going to close public comment and ask the applicant to.
Can I address what she's
No,
saying?
we're not having conversations between the public
Please
and
just
the
consider
applicant.
parking
So-
for 3 units versus 2 units.
So thank you for your comments, and again,
This is-
you can sign in at the table if you'd like to receive a copy of the final determination, or if you'd like to submit any comments, please email the project planner for this. So we're going to invite the applicant up to see if there are any additional questions, or we're just going to move on to subdivision deliberation. So are there any additional questions for the applicant?
What are we supposed to do about the dedication thing?
Okay, so we are going to discuss that. If there's any information you'd like to give to the committee at this point in time, you can provide it, but we are going to provide additional instructions on next steps.
Okay, so you guys did have an application for a dedication waiver where I included maps of what was going on in the area and a narrative of what was happening. You guys have that already.
Right, so that is included in the record for the director's determination.
So can we keep,
At this point in
keep
time-
it open until I can get that stuff back in again? Because I wasn't prepared for what's going on right now. I thought you guys were gonna...
So at this point in time,
Rushed it.
that the applicant is going, if you have additional information to provide to BOE, now is the time to do it. If you don't have enough information, or if, we need to ask BOE additional questions, we would have to have a new hearing to do that.
Well, you leave the record open so I can work with them while the record's being left open.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, BOE, no? Okay, so at this point in time, you can submit any additional materials to staff, or